but I don't know that I'll make it tonight. Should, but I would like to come back.
I will be here on the 14th.
I need someone to help me on trivia.
Okay, we'll call the Warren, Washington County Industrial Development Agency to order. First thing, we need a roll call.
Dave O'Brien,
Here.
Joe LaFura, Craig Leggett,
Here.
Bruce Ferguson, Ginny Sullivan, here, Nick Caimano, Mike Wild,
Here.
Travis Whitehead,
Here.
Brian Campbell,
Here.
Matt Simpson.
Here. Okay, we have quorum.
I want to note that Brian Campbell got here before me. That's normal.
No, it's not.
I'm ahead of you even if I'm late.
Okay, we are here to discuss the pilot application for the Sandy Hill Art Center. And we have a revised application which was sent out over a week ago for you to review under the terms that were discussed at our last IDA meeting. Does anybody have any questions? Or I know I've had some correspondence and some questions as to how this project fits into the IDA's potential benefits. And I'm not sure, does Michael or Kara want to speak on that?
Sure, I mean, I think either one of us can, but the project is, the proposed location for the project is located in a former Empire Zone, which New York State Tax and Finance has defined, is included in its definition of a distressed area, which is the language that is used in Section 862 of the General Municipal Law that indicates that projects in a distressed area are eligible for an exception from the retail component of the prohibition on financing the project. So because it's in a former Empire Zone, it qualifies as being located in a distressed area. There's a couple definitions for distressed area, but being in a former Empire Zone is one of those.
And how does that differentiate? What does that mean to us?
Well, that means that if you determine that you believe that this project is suitable under all of its components, then it does qualify as being located in a distressed area. I mean, the determination as to whether or not you believe this is a viable project for the IDA is a determination that the board needs to make. We can give you the legal basis for that, but that's ultimately your decision.
So to be clear, Mr. Chairman, from a legal opinion from our counsel, this does qualify as a potential project.
It meets into the criteria.
Within the realms of the criteria of the IEAs. Okay.
Well, to clarify it a little differently, it cannot be excluded as a project.
That's different.
Excuse me?
That is different.
That is different.
Different meaning.
Right.
And how do you say that? You guys, that's a good point.
But the question for legal is not to decide what projects you should approve or not. We can tell you whether or not it meets the criteria of the state law. And this project can fit into those parameters.
Correctly, according to our the ABO's guidance, one of the things that should happen first is the attorneys basically weigh in whether this is legal under, right? Is that? I saw that in one of the communications from the ABO in the report that one of our first steps is to ensure that legally it's within our parameters.
And we've established
And we've established that.
Okay, good. So then the next thing would be looking through the financials?
Yes, we have the revised application under the typical, normal pilot that is offered.
The 50-25?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have attached, you have the cost-benefit analyses
No, not in that package.
And Tammy would like to speak on that.
I want to speak to you about the cost-benefit analysis, the actual program that we use that is attached to your copy of this application. In conversation with Mike Brandy, we actually went back and completed page 14 of the application, and the process has always been to take 75% of the estimated cost of the project to come up with your estimated new assessed value. That's really a fictitious number. We don't know what that number is going to be. We're estimating it. So I actually have run this with 3 ways. Doing an estimated cost of $750,000 and calculating your taxes on it. Doing it with a number of $300,000 and a number of $400,000. And I've verified with the ABO and with other IDA agencies that we do not need to use that program. And in all honesty, that program skews data. We can use this form, and it's going to give you the same numbers that you need in order to look at a project. And I'll give you a copy of this. I didn't want to just hand this out and everybody wonder why we had 3 sheets. But you come out with a benefit at the bottom of between 0.53, 0.46, and 0.48% on this. So there isn't a big difference in numbers. So if you want to just take a copy and then pass it out,
Sure.
because you have another thing to look at. I just feel that the program skews the data far too much and is too complicated. When you break it down this way, Mike, you can speak to that. You and I talked about this last week.
Yeah, I think the bottom part of page 14 actually gives you a cost to benefit ratio that's a little more intuitive than the computer program. So in talking with Tammy, really the one variable there is what the final assessed value is going to be.
One of each. One of each.
I'm not an assessor, so I don't know how much the final assessed value would be. Tammy's kind of in the same boat as would be the board. So
There's 3 of them. You need one of each one of those.
One of each one. One of each stack.
One of each stack.
Yes,
Okay.
we did it 3 ways.
Okay, so we're going to have to do our own work here.
Oh, you want one?
We're not used to that. You're not used to that, Travis, really?
And then
I thought you had it easier, huh, Travis?
So then I need that third one.
This one?
Is that it?
I'm not there yet.
I got a question, and it's not really all that significant.
Sure.
On page 7,
Page 2.
on page 7 at the bottom of the application, cost for materials is $700,000, and then it says sourced in county, village was 80%. The next line, it says sourced in state 20%, but in parentheses, it says including town, city, town, or village. So it's got to be at least 80%, and maybe it's 100%. Am I reading that wrong?
I don't know where you are.
I just got to the page and I'm
On
trying
page
to
7.
take in what you said.
In parentheses, just read the part in parentheses, it says including county, city, town, and village, which is the line above. So if it's including that, it's got to be at least that number that's above it, is
It
my
would be
guess.
100. Wouldn't that be?
Oh, not necessarily.
I was like,
It
It said
says,
it's sourced in the city.
right here, it says sourced in state.
Yeah.
So it's got, they've got to at least
I have an iPad
be,
from-
they've got to at least be equal, is my guess. Am I right, wrong, or indifferent on that? I'm just trying to, I don't see too many applications, because I just started, so I'm trying to...
Actually, the way that's worded, it should say source in county, town, and village is 80%, source in state would be 80%.
It has to be at least be 80%, but it could be 100.
it could be 100.
It could be 100, but it can't be less than 80.
outside the county.
But it can't be less than 80, right? That 20's got to be wrong. I'm just...
County, city, town,
I'm
and
trying to
village
be real
is
picky,
in
I'm
the
just
state.
trying to make sure everything's accurate here.
Okay.
We gotta fix that someday.
It would be inclusive of it.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
There should be one less, so I don't have to do all this work, right?
what's the current assessment? I believe it's 140,000. Okay.
Got them all. It's done for you, maybe. You're lucky.
Tammy, then this revised one, don't even use
Don't even consider that one.
Okay.
You just need to decide which one of these
Which one of
is the new assessed value that you're looking at, because it's a fictitious number. There's no way to know that. And this is truly just an estimate of what the potential could be.
Mr. Whitehead?
I'd just like to note that 0.46% for 0.48%, 0.52% is 46%, 48%, right, 53%.
Bottom of the page.
Very bottom.
Very last line.
Very
Oh, I
last
got
line.
it. Yep.
You
If
just
it wasn't a percent, it would be...
Wasn't a percent.
You multiply by .53, yeah.
Well,
Right, no,
in percent.
no, you're right, but that's the same thing. I'm trying to make sure we're accurate here.
So the question on the table is, we as real estate moguls are supposed to take a stab at what the assessed value is?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we want to be on the conservative side, or, you know, I mean, you can tell from his application, he's putting significant amounts of materials and labor in there, so I would think that very easily could meet the $750,000 new assessed value. Mr. Whitehead?
I think no matter which one you pick out, you need to look at the number and compare it to the pro forma here, where it indicates that under annual operating expenses, they'll be somewhere 4,000 or 6,000 or whatever. It seems that the real number is going to be considerably more than 4,000 or 6,000, even after the pilot.
I'm not sure how that pertains to the assessed value of the property.
Well, it doesn't, what I'm saying is no matter what you decide on the assessed value, all these numbers are larger than the claimed expense, and when you're making a profit of $542 in a year, those extra thousands of dollars is going to turn it into a loss rather than a gain.
Mr. Chairman, just before we get off of what we were just handed out here, on 3 different scenarios, now that we have them all in front of us here, can we run through what the difference is one more time on, it looks like on the center section of these pages here? 750, 400, 300.
And then those reflect the numbers, sir, at the bottom, sir.
Okay.
Yep. Good question. It all derives off of that estimated new assessed value.
Yeah, the county tax rate, the local tax rate, and school tax.
So should, as you said, as real estate moguls here, should we be picking any number at this point to be then reviewing other cost benefit or pro forma?
Well, you can't come up with, each project is going to be different. For instance, the project that you're currently reviewing is a renovation of an existing facility. So it's likely that all of the improvements that are being made are not going to be accessible improvements. So it's not going to be a dollar for dollar increase in assessed value, most likely, just because it's a renovation of an already existing building. If you had a new construction project, starting with vacant land, and say the vacant land is assessed at $50,000 and you've got a $2 million construction project, that's going to be a better, you're going to have a better ability to kind of project what that proposed assessed value is going to be, because you can know what the cost of construction is. That's the information that's required to be completed and provided to the assessor. When the project is done, a form called 412A is submitted to the assessor's office, and it asks the question, how much was the cost of this construction?
Okay.
That's on there.
And so my question is, should the board be looking at taking one of these scenarios and saying this is what we judge to be a good guess, and then reviewing the rest of the financials of the project accordingly?
And that's what I threw out there as going, you know, I had thrown out the 750 because it's the amount of dollars that are directly going in materials and labor from the pro forma.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just curious, there's a percentage of full assessed value that happens with assessments. Do we know what the,
They're at 100% equal.
they are at 100%?
Yeah, they're at 100%.
Mr. Campbell?
Well, I gotta believe that somebody that's putting in something of this magnitude is gonna give us a level of work that is gonna represent that magnitude. So I would think the 750 is way more in line. If we're taking something from what is a wrecking ball to something that is, I mean, that's been the conversation in the past. I think if you're taking it to this magnitude, it should represent the kind of money that's put in. It's almost, I don't know how he would feel about it. It would almost be a slap to say you're going to put in $1 million and something's only going to be, you're only going to do a good enough job that's worth $300,000. It seems like we're doing the wrong thing if we do that. I think the 750 would be way more in line.
Mr. O'Brien?
How do we know that?
So, you know, we're speculating because what's going to happen to this building when he gets to a certain point, they're going to reassess it. They're going to go out and look for comparables outside this comparable building. They're going to look at that when they establish assessed value. Now, I think it was brought up earlier, was, for example, they repaired, just for example, someone repairs a roof. That doesn't increase the value of the property, that's simply restoring the value back to what it should have been. So that would technically not be included in the new assessed value, because that's where the building should have been. So there's lots of things in that $1 million that are reconstruction of what's existing. So we're not assessors, but, you know, they're going to go back and they're going to take a look at every other building around there, the Hoffman Building, other buildings, TD Bank, and that's the Hoffman Building, other buildings in Hudson Falls to find out what the square footage is. They're going to apply the assessed value with all the other improvements. So I'm not sure 750 is right. I'm not sure 400 is right. I'm guessing somewhere in between might be there. So I'm really not comfortable with 750. I'm more comfortable with $400,000 to $500,000
You don't need to
in this.
You don't need to pick one or the other. Those different scenarios are just to inform your analysis of the cost and benefits of the project. Just another consideration for analyzing the project.
Hold on one second. Ginny had a question.
I did?
Oh, I thought you had your hand up there.
No,
You're scratching your head.
Oh, okay. I may have, okay.
Trying to figure out what we're
Mr.
talking
Biddle.
about.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Bryan, I think normally that what you were saying would be apropos if the assessment was already where it was supposed to be, and then you fix the roof. Meaning, the roof was good, you assess it, it's at that high value. Then as years wear on, you do maintenance. This building is assessed per, I know there aren't, I don't think there are, but holes in the roof. It's taken into account that the condition is already taken into account at the 140 a year.
So keep in mind that the cost-benefit ratio between the three ranges from 46% to 53%. So we're talking a 7% deviation between these three, but this is just part of what we're looking at as information to decide the benefit of or not of this project. He had his hand up first.
Well, I'd like to go back to what Mike just said, because we are, well, I read the ABO, and it wants us to do this right. And I gotta believe that one of these is probably more right than the other two. I don't know which one. I think it's a 750, but I think because of the way we're supposed to do it, we do have to choose one, and that has to be represented in the package when we look at it. Am I right?
I mean, in this scenario, you truly have no way of knowing what the assessor is going to reassess the project for. There's no way, and there's no way that we could go to the assessor and say, here's what the proposed project is, what are you going to reassess it at? Because she's going to say, I can't go out there and reassess it, I can't give you that number. I mean, she could ballpark it, but I doubt she's even going to consider that. So in this case, I don't think this is a form that, again, was created by all the IDAs across the state, and they came up with this formula based on like what the ABO had requested. Now all the IDAs are trying to use this form, and just like everything else that has this work. Yeah, this wasn't created here locally. This was created and is being used by a variety of IDAs. So I think in this case, if you wanted to say, it could be reassessed at this, it could be reassessed at this, we'd like to look at some sort of number in the middle, base it on the average of that. It's just so you have an idea of what the tax benefit would be if the pilot is approved. It's also not it's also not accurate in the sense that it's just based on the current year's tax rate. So 10 years from now, I'm sure the tax rate is going to be different, and so then those numbers 10 years down the way are going to be varied also. So it's just based on a split moment in time if everything were to stay the same. The only thing that stays the same for the term of the pilot is the base value that gets frozen that will always be taxed on, and that will be the current assessed value.
I agree with what you said and Mr. Campbell said, but I just want to point out that this is a two-edged sword. So we don't know what number we're going to settle on, okay? We're agreed on that.
The three-edged sword, then.
Okay. But we're looking at not only a reduction in taxes at this point, but we're looking at what benefit might be received by the village in the future. So, and whether or not we should go ahead and give tax benefits now based on, future income. So if you're going to say it, can only be worth $300,000, then in the future, the village is not going to make very much money on it. However, if they're going to be assessing him at $750,000 in 10 years from now, then they'll be making, that much more money. So, either way, you've got to consider it not only on the benefit to Mr. Nikas, but also on the benefit later on to the town, because that's the only reason we're here, is not to benefit Mr. Nikas, but to benefit ultimately the town. I think that's our charter.
Mr. Leggett?
Thank you. So, to help me out on reading this then, if we look at the table in the middle here, and if we take the one based on 750,000, bottom right-hand corner, let's call that the bottom line, $83,700 net exemption. Is $83,700 the total not paid because of the pilot over a 10-year period?
Estimated.
Yes, sir. Okay. So,
If we believe that the value of the property is
is that much, and it could be as I'll just say as little as 33,480, given our three scenarios.
But one thing I'd like to add for the hopefully for the benefit of the board and for Mr. Nikas, is that he is still paying taxes on the $140,000. Whether the building is improved or not, you own the building right now, correct? You're paying taxes. If you don't put another penny in it, you're paying taxes on $140,000. So I just want the board to know that this is also not a clean slate of no taxes being paid. I just need us to agree, question mark, that we are looking at a static line of Mr. Nikas is paying taxes in the amount of an assessed value at 100% of $140,000. I just want us to start there, that this is not an ask from Mr. Nikas to do away with all the taxes.
This is over and above.
Correct.
And then we have to, as a board, determine if his capital investment per the Empire Zone in the distressed area, which play into hopefully part of our thinking, good or bad, whether we up or down the vote, that we put in, is Mr. Nikas' capital investment worth a benefit for the community as a whole? I totally agree with Mr. Whitehead. Not only in 10 years, I do agree with you there, sir, but even now, because of the distressed area portion. So I just wanted to put that all forward to the board to have it in our thinking.
Mr. Quano?
Hoffman's project has come up a couple of times. You mentioned it a couple of times. It is one project. So we do have, while it's not apples and apples in terms of the building, we have an idea of what happens when we do that work in downtown Hudson Falls.
we could go to the assessor and say, while they're not the same building, how good has that been to the city of Hudson Falls, or the town of Hudson Falls? Village of Hudson Falls, after the promotion. And keep in mind that one of the things that is bothersome a little bit to me is that Hoffman and several others have redone buildings like this. But in every case, I think I'm right when I say every case, the bottom floor has been commercial and the upstairs have been rentals. And the bottom floor being commercial has made them successful, very successful in my opinion. And I think you'll find the same thing. Why can't we ask the assessor, how did that work out?
You can do whatever sort of
At least
due
we
diligence
had
you
something.
want. I think at some point that conversation is going to will come about, because the pilot needs to be approved by the municipality in any event. So, I mean, that, in my opinion, would be something you'd bring up when you're saying you did it here, and this was successful, and
Did it work?
yeah.
So, I think the TD building, or the Hoffman building, is mostly office space, is that right? I think might have one floor of apartments. I think all the rest is all office buildings, so it's
Fort Hudson and
mostly used.
HCR
Fort
on the
Hudson,
first
a couple in there. So that's there, but I go to based on what is on paper here, what that building's going to be worth. If I was assessor, I would say when it's finished, I'm going to tell you, because there might be legal liability coming out and saying to a group like this,
That's right.
that this building will be at $4,387,000, and now all of a sudden, for some reason, someone used that in the planning, and it comes to be $10 million or $2 million. We have that instance in Fort Edward already where we have a problem with the assessments. And it was based on speculation, and it's created a lot of issues for a lot of municipalities. So I would hesitate on that. I think we have to look at this project, say, what's our guesstimate? Bill? What do you think, what did you use for your calculations for assessed value for the taxes?
Well, when you have a vehicle building like this, what an assessor will do is use the capitalization of income method. They do not use the dollar investment.
But what number did you use?
I used $300,000, and I did that with a 4% return on a profit of $12,000 a year. So if somebody was going to buy the building and want to return a 4% income from the building, they would have to spend $300,000. 4% of $300,000 is $12,000. So if you had $12,000 profit on my $300,000 investment, I just made 4% on my money. That's the only way you can look at this type of building. Because quite honestly, the money I'm putting in this building, I'll never get out. As much of the framing you see there, as we speak, we're putting bearing walls to get occupancy up. The vast majority of this expenditure is just to bring it to a point where you can occupy the building, literally. There are, when you say holes in the roof, Mr. O'Brien, there are holes all over the place in this building. The only way to restore it is to throw a lot of money at it. If somebody wants to pay $750 for it, I'll tell it today.
I'll give you $7.50.
Okay, Mr. LaFleur? I just had a quick question, Mr. Nichols. How long has this building been at its $140,000?
I bought it for $140. That was.
Well, how long before that has it been sitting there doing the same thing it's doing now?
Oh my gosh. Nobody has, before me, have tried to bring this baby back.
So 10, 15 years?
Oh, yeah. It actually went to tax sale in 1983, $283.
So it's basically been dormant except for the first floor.
We had a tattoo parlor in there, we had a lot of homeless people in the building, we had drug deals going on in the building. Nobody could control this building. So I bought it at a foreclosure, short sale, for $140, and that was $140 more than it was worth. So this is not a project to make profit. This is a project for my hometown. I know that may seem like a Pollyanna reason, but that's what's going on here with this building.
Mr. Campbell?
Well,
And I understand what he's saying, but no matter what it's assessed, it has no bearing on what it will make or won't make. That's beyond us when our pilots are gone.
Can you say again?
It's 7%.
No matter what Bill just said, it's probably true, or could be true, whatever, but it has no bearing on what it'll actually make as to where it's assessed. Where it's assessed will have no bearing on what it makes.
Correct.
No, that's not 100% true.
Well, he's saying they will assess it according to what it makes, but when those pilots, until our pilot's off, is when that assessment will matter.
No.
No.
Assessment value when the assessor goes in and assesses it.
Well, no, but we're going with
After you
the...
finish the construction.
Right, but we're going with the ABO and the pilot and all that. That's why we're doing this exercise, I believe.
This is, let me reframe this. We have to do that as information, and you have to use hypothetical best estimate, what we want to use to establish some kind of a cost-benefit ratio. And you can see there's only a 7, it goes from 40...
This is my point.
40, so we could spend a lot of time on 300 or 750, but in reality, it's a 7% swing from the low to the high. So we have to decide within that parameter that we have here, and if we want to drop it down to 200, that will change that percentage a very small amount.
So, and that's my question. Is it worth a lengthy discussion to do something different than we've always done, unless what we've always done is wrong? Then it might be. But is it worth a lengthy discussion to do this different than we have done any others in the past, or we would expect to do any in the future? I guess that's my question. Why set a precedent that every time we give a project now, we're going to have 3 sheets, 5 sheets, 10 sheets to decide what the value is, when we can just do it the way we're doing it? I guess that's where I'm at.
Because every project's unique.
It is, but
Every project has been unique in the past, and you've always used that 75% of the total cost of construction to estimate the new assessed value. That's been your process in the past.
if we're going to do this at every time, man, this is going to...
Different.
But your last several projects have all been new construction projects that have, since this form came out and has been required, I'm trying to think, but I think almost all the projects have been new construction.
So in moving forward, I mean, we've got to, we have to be fair to the applicant. We have to come to a conclusion of this. And irrespective of our process decisions that are getting intermingled in our discussions right now, I think...
Education.
Yes, but we really have to get to that point. With that
And
said,
I'm only going to say this to move it forward. I'm not going to get back to it. What Mr. Nika said, I absolutely believe him, and I absolutely believe that you're trying to be a benefactor to the area. But the problem is, that's not what we do here. And what we do here is spelled out in another document, and I'll read from it. It's factual. I don't think it's a problem, but we'll be looking at this later. The counties of Warren, Washington Industrial Development Agency, established under Chapter 862, laws of 1971, as a public benefit corporation created to promote, develop, encourage, and assist in the construction, expansion, and equipping, and this is the important thing to me, of economically sound industrial and commercial facilities in order to advance the job opportunities, general prosperity, and economic welfare of the citizens of Warren County and Washington County. And if we look at that as what we would like to do, not to say, hey, we all think this is a wonderful project and we'd like to give you money, but it's not in our charter to do so if it's not economically viable. And I think by the numbers that you see here, and even by his admission, it's not economically viable. It's a great thing, but it's not something that we have the authority to go ahead and assist.
Mr. Biddle.
Well, I mean,
Hold on.
I want to add to him what he just said, though.
Yep.
I want to ask the question. We have this paper here.
We have resolution, yes.
What's this resolution? If we pass this resolution today, doesn't that building now have more value? Just by the fact that we have done this? No, because the town's got to approve it.
But they won't get to approve it without us.
1871, it's 890-C.
Economically viable, is that what you're saying?
Somebody, no disrespect, Bill, but he could sell that building now for $300,000 or $500,000.
Unless it's in just general.
This project.
Okay, Mr.
The
Biddle?
project doesn't, I don't think that carries forward.
Okay, that's
He
what I
sells
want
the
to find
building,
out.
I don't believe it carries forward, does the pilot?
If the board wanted to approve a assignment of it, you could, it would come back to the board.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Biddle?
Sorry.
I believe that that paragraph is not written and remanded to a single project in and of itself. I think it's the project itself, it definitely has to be taken into consideration on its economic feasibility, but that paragraph also remands to the entirety of the community that it is to improve. So my thought process does go where yours is, Mr. Whitehead, on concerns of any project, feasibility or not, in and of itself. But it also weighs, that paragraph also speaks to the greater good of the community and the economic well-being of the community as a whole. I just want to make sure that if there's a duality here, there is not a singularity of giving money away to a project that's just going to go under, but it's good for the community, or one that's really good for the project itself and bad for the community. I think there is some percentage of both in that paragraph.
Okay, Mr. Kamado?
Well, I think what we have to do is come to a point. The only way you
I don't
come
know
to a
either.
point is that I will put on the table that resolution number, whatever it is, for the project.
Okay, you make that a motion?
This only sets the public hearing. This only sets the public hearing.
Hold on, we have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, this is the...
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Joe. Okay, discussion. Mr. Whitehead?
I just, were we given this ahead of time? I mean, did I miss this?
I was just giving this to me now.
It's a little
What is
unfair.
that?
Wait.
The resolution.
We,
The resolution, you should have a copy.
Was it in that pack?
No, Mike just handed the resolution out.
I got one, did you miss one? I was
yes, I do. It's the same resolution every day.
I want to let everybody know, this is the same resolution for every project
No problem.
that we have. It's boilerplate approved language with the project's name included. So it's no different than any resolution that we've had for any project in the past.
It's just authorizing a public hearing, it's not authorizing...
Noted. Yep, I brought extras.
Mr. Campbell?
Are we moving this forward at what level? That's what I want to know.
That information isn't...
This is only public hearing, period.
It's scheduled
End of
for
story.
public
But
hearing.
you can't have a public hearing unless you know how you're moving it forward.
You're accepting an application based on the pilot that we have on the table here.
Only if you approve the project after the public hearing and you discuss all that information, or you hear more comments from Mr. Nickus, then you can decide at that point, and all those numbers will be incorporated into any sort of approval.
Why wouldn't we decide that before?
Maybe there would be information that is disclosed at the public hearing that you want to consider. You don't,
Interesting thought.
none of the specifics are approved until after the public hearing. That's by statute.
So the first sentence, first at the top of the resolution in front of you, it says, "Resolution accepting an application for financial assistance submitted by Sandy Hill Vision LLC, the company related to a certain project, authorizing a public hearing with respect to the project and describing the financial assistance being contemplated by the agency with respect to the project." So this is setting a public hearing based on the application that has been submitted. The financial assistance will all be part of the public hearing that's being offered.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I have to take a different tact on this in terms of the economic viability of the project. What I think that we miss is that the investment is going to happen up front, and that is now changing the character of a building that has been in disrepair. If it's not economically viable, we still have an improved building. And anytime you take a bet on an investment, there's risks. And to go forward with this gentleman's own money to make this happen, I think he's risking more than the town and the school district or the village, right, and the county. You know, the county's still going to have a building that's going to be assessed at a higher value. So there is some residual benefit there to the region. And I just look at it from the standpoint of we have someone that's ready to make an investment. We can help him make that investment. It's a long-term benefit to that community. And I'm in support of it.
One more thing, I just want everybody to be clear. This isn't authorizing the pilot at this point. There'll be another authorization resolution at the summation of all the public hearing. And
Mr. Chairman, I think before us, we have council saying that this is an applicable project for us to consider. We have before us 3 different scenarios regarding what the potential pilot implications would be to the community. And we have before us the application of the company with its updated pro forma. And even though that may look a little bit lean based on what Mr. Wild has said, if we take that into consideration, I think that this is a project, a resolution worth approving and moving forward.
Mr. O'Brien?
Mr. Wild's point, closed the meeting last time when Mr. Nichols was here. He said regardless if we got this pilot, he was still moving forward with the building. So to some extent, it's going to be improved one way or another. I mean, he's a smart investor. He's not going to leave that building standing there like that.
That's his smart.
So, well, we'll see. So I just want to clarify that point. So there are some value to this.
Mr. Campbell?
I like the whole idea of the project, and I'm a yes, except I'm a no if we can't decide on which way we're going to do it. Why can't we decide on one of the 3 ways?
Because you don't have to until afterwards, after the public hearing.
Because between these 3, there's only, what,
never seen a public
6%
hearing.
difference?
Are you comfortable between minimum and maximum?
No, I'm comfortable with the decision.
I'll make a motion. We take
Hold on. We have a motion on the floor in a second.
I'll make a motion to amend that to say we'll go with...
I just said that.
I'll make a motion to the amendment to say we go with a mid-tier calculation. That makes Mr. Campbell 400,000. That makes Mr.
With you moved it, Mr. Camato?
I second your amendment, and I approve.
Okay, so we have an amended motion on the floor reflecting the average, is what you're saying, right? Between the 3?
Mid-range, 400,000.
Okay.
The middle one.
No.
It's not,
Well, let's be clear.
It's not an average.
Is it
It's the middle one.
525,000, which would be the average of the min and the max? That's what Mr. Leggett said. Or is it the 400,000?
400,000, the mid one.
Oh, okay, in mid.
Whatever the third one is, whatever.
Just want to be clear.
400,000, using the 400,000?
And that's what I second.
Okay.
One modification.
Any discussion on motion?
While I don't have a problem on the amendment, I'm still wanting to talk about the original.
Well, the amended resolution is what's on the floor now, not the
Okay.
original resolution.
All right.
The original resolution has been changed.
But the original resolution still says we're going to go forward to...
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
Right. And so that's what I'd like to comment.
Okay.
And one of the things that Mr. O'Brien just brought up is that the project will be done anyway. And right in our application, it says, will the project be done anyway? And if it is, you can't give them money. I'm pretty sure that's right there in the application. Mr. Campbell, I agree with 100% that I don't think we should be going into public hearing if we ourselves don't have any agreement on, basically what we're hoping to do. And thirdly, I'd like to ask council to comment on that note by the ABO where they reference chapter 862.
Yeah, we don't know where that,
Economically sound thing comes from?
yeah, we're not sure where that language comes from. The statute that established the Warren Washington IDA is General Municipal Law, Section 890-C. That language is not in that statute. The language that sets forth the powers and authorities of IDAs in general is Section 858 of the General Municipal Law. That language is not there either. In its totality. I mean, some of the words are there, but...
So we have no idea why the ABO put in this economically sound?
I mean,
I haven't seen.
we were trying to do a search to try to back into the statute they're trying to reference, but the two that we pulled, 858, which are the powers, and 890C, which is IDA, I don't know.
I'd like to correct something too. We do have a complete application for 50, we do know what we're moving forward. It's a 50%, 25% standard pilot.
Okay, so, but
Based on 400.
Based on the 400.
on 400.
Well, but the application itself is based on 300. Because he's showing real property taxes.
That's because we just had a resolution to change it to 400.
But that changes the economic.
The 50 and 25% exemptions will be applied to the actual assessed value. The 400,000, whatever number the board's going to decide on, is just for the purposes of considering the cost-benefit analysis. So that's not binding on what benefits will be actually given to the project. It's just for the purposes of analyzing the cost-benefit.
Mr. Kamato?
Well, just a question, what Mr. Whitehead just said. If the project is going forward, I'm asking this as a lawyer, if the project is going forward, no matter how good it is, does that preclude us from going any further?
There's a question.
The question is in the application. It doesn't say you're prohibited from...
So it doesn't stop us from going forward. If the project is going forward, regardless of what we do, that doesn't preclude us from doing it.
I believe, if I recall the application correctly, I think he talked about... I won't try to remember a little bit about the application.
There's a question in there.
There is the question is in there, yeah.
The answer is nothing restored to the projected goals of the application.
Page 4 of the application?
Yeah. Please confirm by checking the box below if there is likelihood that the project would not be undertaken but for the financial assistance provided by the agency, and it was checked yes.
And there was a note that the project will only be partially completed without financial assistance.
And then that top of the next page.
Change of rule will allow 100% completion of
And he
project
stated-
goals, 100% occupancy.
And he stated it would only be partially completed without it.
Great.
Don't know if that covers this or not. That's how it's written.
Yeah, it's an item to be considered.
I do have a process question.
Okay.
This is set the public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, this has to go to the town board at Kingsbury for review and approval.
The pilot.
Pilot.
Mm-hmm.
So, would we want to have them review it before we set the public hearing? Because some of the questions might come up at the public hearing that they have. I'm just asking process questions, that's all. I don't care one way or the other, I just want to ask.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to you. If you want to confirm that the town would move forward with this before you move forward with it, that's... If you have the public hearing and adopt a resolution approving the project without the town's approval, then that resolution has to be contingent upon the town's approval with respect to the pilot piece.
But that's the normal process,
Right.
right? You have a public hearing, we approve it, then it
Yep.
goes to the town.
The traditional process you have followed is that you have scheduled the public hearing, held the public hearing, and then approved it and gone to the municipality, and then it's contingent upon the municipality's approval.
And they have to do the whole thing over? They must have to do a public hearing also?
That's up to them. They can
We don't
just,
know that, okay.
they could just approve it at a town board meeting.
I was going to say, if they have to have a
They
public
can,
hearing... maybe we should have
it's
it-
their responsibility to
They don't.
consult with the school and the village on any impacts that they have.
So we're not, I don't think we're jumping in front of anybody.
Call the question.
So I'll call the question.
As amended.
Only amendment than the original motion.
We're voting on the original motion as amended, right?
As amended, yeah, because we didn't vote.
And then-
We didn't. I think because we never voted on the original resolution, and the person who made the motion agrees to the amendment, and you
Right.
agreed, the second
Right.
agrees to make the we can move forward with the resolution as presented.
Person heard that?
Beyond me, I don't go to...
You're correct.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle. Okay, roll call, please.
Dave O'Brien.
Yes.
Joe LaFura.
Yes.
Craig Leggett.
Yes.
Bruce Ferguson. Ginny Sullivan.
Yes.
Nick Caimano.
Yes.
Mike Wild.
Yes.
Travis Whitehead.
No.
Brian Campbell.
Yes.
Matt Simpson.
Yes. Okay, passes, and we'll schedule the public hearing.
Yeah, it will either need to be held at the town, so we can coordinate with them on
Okay.
a date. We need at least 10 days advance notice for publication and posting and all that.
We can figure that out around...
Yeah, so
Here in
you
City.
don't have time to, well,
Unless
could do it.
Dave, as vice chair, wanted to...
Well, you could do, you have time, I guess.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. We can coordinate, and then we'll follow around.
I'm generally close to Hudson Falls.
Can I just clarify what we agreed to? Is the total assessed value 400, or is it 400 plus 140? What is it we're going to be basing it on?
The 140 is automatically, that's,
400 face value.
so it's
Oh, it's going from 140 to 400.
140 to 400. Yeah.
140 to 400. So it would be an additional
260.
Okay. Thank you. So next, you have the list of...
What's that?
Okay. So we need to, I needed the language for item F. We were going into executive session to discuss the...
What do the ABO gave you guidance on that, right, Tim?
Yes, we did.
I would defer to them.
I'm just looking for it.
Just want to make sure I have this correct.
I think I have the email from you, Tammy.
It's medical employment, disciplinary,
I don't know.
just medical employment, it's not medical. That's the one it is, so.
Oh, is that right? The employment history and...
Yeah.
I thought the ABO was some draft, non-final documents or something.
Yes,
or-
not a final document.
Yes. So we need to go into an executive session to discuss the findings of the ABO operational review. It's an opportunity that to clear up any inaccuracies that could be in the opinions formed by the ABO. And so we need to go into executive session to discuss
Discuss the ABO's findings. and-
ABO's findings.
That's it under
Item F.
F, is it?
Yes, and I don't have the language in front of me.
I'm trying to pull it up, but I'll put it in my...
I'll give it to you. You want me to?
Yeah, you want to...
You got it?
F says, the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation.
You would be the corporation in that case.
Oh, hey, Mike.
Mike?
So the corporation is us.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nick, you would move to that, right? Okay. Do we have a second? Mr. Campbell? Need a roll call or just all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Passes.
Going into executive session. Response.
No action was taken.
Yeah, no action.
The other was, we came out of executive session, that was an action taken.
Any better with the door closed than we are with the door open?
So they ever gonna show up again, or they just write this, we respond, and they write the final thing, and you're done?
You're in.
They're a little turds.
Okay, so there's no action taken in executive session. We discussed we reviewed the findings of the ABO operational review, and
Mr. Chairman, the draft,
draft. Yes.
just to be, for the record, the draft of the ABO review.
So moving forward, we need to prepare our responses and submit them to the ABO, be included in their final report, which will be coming out. So, how do we want to do this? We have our council prepare the draft response. That typically...
Got their contract.
Yes.
We will address that, Mr. O'Brien.
Should be.
Oral and written contracts.
This needs to be in by the 27th.
Yes.
Do we need another meeting?
No, I think...
That response before it goes?
We're going to have our board meeting,
So
so...
you could,
That's right.
we'll get it to you in advance, so you could review it, make any modifications, or...
And when they do say establish adequate procedures, in our response, it's just a commitment to do those things. We do not need to include adequate.
A lot of them we've done during this process, working with the ABL. So it's been a good process.
Mr. Liggett, I believe you're right. We need to acknowledge it and then commit to write out procedures for those that we haven't yet.
Okay. Anything else we need to discuss?
You good, Chairman?
Motion to adjourn. Mr. Campbell?
Just leave, you're in trouble.
Mr. LaFleur? Did I say that right?
Not even close.
Mary,
That's the French version, I want the Sicilian
LaFleur.
Go with Joe every time.
Joe, I should. I gotta pronounce. I know LaFleur. That's why.